You're listening to the Pithy Chronicle. History with a bite. I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica. And we bring you history's dirtiest deeds, dripping with sarcasm.
Are you hungry yet? Hey there, Pithy listeners. I am so excited to welcome you to Season 3 of the Pithy Chronicle, Women at War. We're going to be talking about women at war in a very literal sense. We're going to be talking about the war within oneself sometimes. Sometimes it's a war against a specific person, maybe a war with the government, a war with freedoms. Women at war.
It is literal and metaphorical.
There you go. So let's jump right in because today's episode I'm so excited about. Erica, what do you think of when I say the name Brünnhilde?
Richard Wagner.
Excellent response. Yeah. Anything else?
The Ring Cycle. I also think of the Norse sagas.
What do you think she looks like?
Well, I know what she looks like in the opera. You know, she is the fat lady sings.
The horned headdress.
Yeah, and the pointy Madonna boobs and sheepskin pelt.
Perfect.
A strong, capable woman. Is she tall? Is she statuesque? Yeah, probably.
I like it. Brünnhilde is immortalized, as you said, in Richard Wagner's epic opera cycle, Der Ring des Nibelungen. She is the Valkyrie, and like those of Norse mythology, she is tasked with carrying dead warriors to Valhalla, the hero's paradise.
Because the Valkyrie literally translates to chooser of the slain. It is such a good name.
And at the end of the 15-hour opera, and yes, it is seriously that long, and people do still love it, Brünnhilde has one last wow with a powerful aria before throwing herself onto her lover's funeral pyre.
And thus begat the saying, "It ain't over until the fat lady sings."
Exactly, thank you. But while Wagner's opera has a very Nordic flair, the character of Brünnhilde is based on an actual queen, or really, two queens. She is an amalgam of two Frankish sisters-in-law whom I bet you have never heard of. Queen Brünnhild and Queen Fridegund.
I have actually heard of them.
Yay! When did you hear about them?
Only when I started watching Vikings and Vikings Valhalla and a couple of other of the historical ones.
Because the Viking stuff is really in vogue right now.
It is very in vogue, but obviously they're not on that show, but I kind of went down rabbit holes because... Me? Yes, I know. But if I'm not watching a historical drama and fiercely doing research on my phone, then I'm not watching it.
That's fair. I get that. But I would not be surprised if most of our listeners have not taken the opportunity to do their own research. So, the reason that they are not as well known is because their legacies were purposefully erased. And this is a theme throughout history with women. I think we'll touch on it a lot this season. But the men that follow powerful women are like, can we add some more whiteout to these historical records? They just can't handle a powerful woman leading the way. But today, we're going to fix that.
It is the least we can do.
Historical redemption, here we come. Once upon a time, almost 1,500 years ago, there lived a beautiful princess named Brünnhild. Her father was Athanagilt, a Visigoth king who ruled Hispania, today's Spain and Portugal on the Iberian Peninsula. He also ruled Septima, which is now in southern France. And her betrothed was King Sigibert of Austrasia.
Okay, and Austrasia is?
A really old kingdom that no longer exists.
Figured that.
And I'm pretty sure most people aren't familiar with because I actually had to look it up. It's centered along the Rhine River and encompassed present-day Luxembourg, eastern Belgium, northeastern France, west-central Germany, and the southern Netherlands. It was the northeastern quadrant of the Merovingian kingdom of the Franks.
Oh.
So Sigibert's father, Clothar the Old.
It's a great name. It means he's been around, he's wise.
He did. He has been around because he fought his entire life to unite the Frankish kingdom, which covered the whole of Gaul. And after he died, his 4 sons immediately undid all of his hard work and carved up the empire into 4. So Sigebert, the third son, received Austrasia, that northwestern quadrant.
Okay. Seems like pretty fertile lands, though. You're right there on the river, good for trade. Not too shabby for a third son.
Not too shabby, but terrible for the father's legacy.
Yeah.
Princess Brunhild was a catch. She came with a huge dowry, was noted as beautiful, and she, of course, had a supremely royal bloodline. King Sigebert, on the other hand, was meh.
Yeah,
Not good.
A third son.
Not great.
A third son.
So how did he win such a prize? Well, it wasn't his kingdom, which was much smaller than many others of the time, and smaller than some of his brothers. I hate it when I have a small kingdom presented to me.
I wouldn't know.
Oh, well played. The thing that was most attractive about Sigebert was his ambition. Sigebert, whose name means magnificent victory, was a renowned warrior, and he convinced King Athanagilt that he would restore his father's Frankish kingdom, and all he needed to do it was a noble queen by his side.
And what does he have? A noble queen?
Here we go.
Okay.
Princess Brunhild traveled more than 1,000 miles to her new kingdom, struggling across the snow-capped Pyrenees, meandering through the ripening vineyards of Narbonne, until she finally made it to the land of the Franks. And behind her followed a trail of wagons, piled high with coins of gold and silver, precious jewels, furs, and silks.
Which sounds like my kind of caravan, man.
Couple were married, Sigebert, 32 years old, and Brunhild, a circa baby, despite her illustrious status, somewhere between 18 and 24. The couple would then go on to have 3 children, 2 daughters, and a son. And meanwhile, in the neighboring kingdom of Neustria, Clothar the Old's youngest son, Chilperic.
Very unfortunate name. It sounds like a form of the pox.
I think it sounds like a sneeze. Chilperic.
Oh, yes.
He was less than pleased with his share of the father's empire. He was the youngest, he had the smallest dominion, and then he finds out...
I hate it when I have a small dominion. I'm sorry, this is going to be the running joke this season.
Don't worry, the men will whip them out in measure at some point, I'm sure. So when he heard about his brother's illustrious marriage, he was furious.
I'm guessing that between those two and the 4 brothers in general, there's no love lost. They don't care for each other.
No brotherly love between these guys, no. Evidently, Chilperic thought Sigebert's lofty marriage was basically a declaration of dynastic ambitions. Which it was. And this was concerning to him, because the 2 kingdoms, Austrasia and Neustria, shared a border of 300 miles. And Chilperic, the whiny little brother, was constantly testing his elder brother's defenses. He was just a mischievous little bugger.
All in good fun.
Oh, sure. So now, Erica, can you guess what Chilperic did next?
Well, I'm assuming he probably tried to take a noble bride himself. I'll one-up you.
That's exactly right. You're so right. He also needs...
It's almost like these men are just so predictable.
So predictable. He needs now a powerful, rich, influential wife, too. Obviously. Slight problem. He was already married. But there's an easy fix.
Oh, a nunnery.
A nunnery! Exactly! He plops that used-up first queen into the nunnery. Voila! Newly available.
Do they have kids? Do we know anything about her?
There is a son and he will come into play.
Keep going, then.
Who could be better, Chilperic wondered, than Brunhild? I mean, she had it all.
Oh, is it going to be the sister, the older sister?
Are you reading ahead?
No!
Yes, it's the older sister. Are you flipping serious?
I can't help that this man is a
walking stereotype. By
the book, yes. The most obvious answers ever.
He has to go for the sister, the older sister, Galswintha. So Chilperic and Galswintha were not blessed in the name categories. At least they had something in common.
Dynastic marriages have been
She was just as lovely. She had the same immense dowry, and she was backed by a strong dynasty. But she was most definitely out of his league. So how is he going to pull this off? Because
he had the smallest dominion.
He did. But then he made King Athanagilt an offer he couldn't refuse. Traditionally, a Frankish bride was given a Morgengabe, or morning gift, after the couple consummated their marriage. Thanks for sleeping with me. Here's a beautiful fancy estate in the south of France, for example.
It's like a push present, but for
weddings. It's like an opening up present. Sigebert gave Brunhild an estate in the south of France, but Chilperic sealed the deal for his wedding by offering Galswintha an unprecedented gift, bestowing upon her 1/3 of his entire kingdom, which included 5 incredibly wealthy cities. The deal was made. Galswintha made her own way across the Pyrenees through the idyllic Narbonne vineyards to Neustria, where she found
wedded bliss, I hope.
Oh, I don't think so. No.
It would be too easy.
She found Chilperic in bed with his favorite slave, Fredegund.
There we go.
She arrives and she gets rid of the mistresses, but then a year later, found back in bed, middle of the act. It's not good.
So wait, I thought that Fredegund was the sister. Is this not the same?
No. This is the same Fredegund that I mentioned at the beginning, who becomes queen.
Okay.
But currently, she is the slave being forced to sleep with Chilperic, and who was caught in bed by the wife, Galswintha. Sister
the
of
actual
Brunhild.
sister.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Yes. So,
God, we are keeping it in the family.
Galswintha was furious.
Naturally so.
She was already pissed about the mistresses and the courtesans. And second of all, Fredegund was her maid. So she was kind of embarrassed, pretty angry. So she threatened to go back home to Daddy and take that Morgengabe with her. Yeah. And then she died.
Mysteriously?
No, not really. No. She was clearly strangled in her bed, found by her husband. And 3 days after that, Fredegund and Chilperic said, I do, making kissy faces at each other across the altar.
That's dirty.
So now, let's discuss who was this former slave, now Queen Fredegund. Well, we don't really know.
I'm so shocked.
She never spoke of her origins. And after her rise to power, she suppressed any discussion of her former life on pain of death. It's possible that she was captured as a child. Maybe she was sold to satisfy her parents' or relatives' debts. She could have been abandoned. All of these would have been common enough in the early medieval world. But what we know for certain is that she had strawberry blonde hair, beautiful features, and a lethal personality. What are you laughing about?
The thing we know for sure is she has strawberry blonde hair.
That's all we got.
That's it. But we know
it was
for
really
sure.
notable, I guess. We're positive she was beautiful, strawberry blonde, and lethal.
Well, as fascinating as the color of her hair is,
all right.
I think we need to go back to the murdered princess.
Oh,
there was no repercussion for her death? Nothing?
Okay, let's see. So her loving husband did not outwardly grieve, if that's what you mean. He also never addressed her death publicly. He never searched for her mysterious assassin. He offered no reward for information about her murder, and he didn't even punish the guards who were posted outside her royal bedchamber that night to protect her.
Neither did Catherine the Great when Peter III died.
Interesting.
Tale as old as time. Before.
So it seems pretty clear that he murdered her. He murdered Galswintha.
Okay.
Bishop Gregory of Tours, whose account is one of the very few that we have left, claimed Chilperic ordered Galswintha to be strangled and found her dead on the bed.
You heard it from the bishop.
The only real question about everything was how involved was Fredegund.
I mean, I feel like she's got to be pretty involved.
Who knows?
But Galswintha's family can't just let that lie, right? Brunhild is a pretty important person.
No, they did not just let it lie. So with her death, Galswintha's Morgengabe, her 1/3 of Chilperic's kingdom, should pass to her family. But she hadn't dictated a will. So it's kind of up in the air who's the family. Obviously, Chilperic is like,
it's me.
Well, I'm her spouse. It's me. But King Sigebert, brother of Chilperic, argues that it should really come to her sister, his wife, Brunhild. And with that excuse, he goes ahead and attacks Chilperic's kingdom with the intent to take all of Galswintha's rightful third and then whatever else he can.
The fact that Chilperic didn't see this coming is astounding.
It feels like
you have terrorized your brother's lands and been such a little nuisance and a pain in the butt. Like,
he'd been asking for it.
Yes.
And I will say, I feel like perhaps he murdered her in a moment of anger or like...
Because he clearly didn't think the big picture
He did not think this through. Chilperic flees his kingdom, taking Fredegund with him. And I read a really great line in a wonderful National Geographic article that said, quote, "While Brunhild was being fated as queen of Paris, Fredegund found herself queen of a bunker 40 miles away."
Wow.
Chilperic ran away like a scared little chicken.
With the smallest dominion.
It's not about the size, it's about how you use it. Yeah. If the men were in charge, that would be the end of the story. Chilperic gave up, Sigebert celebrated, but Fredegund wasn't about to end up as just the queen of a flippin' bunker.
Good for her.
She had worked too damn hard.
And killed her mistress.
To rise from kitchen maid to royal servant to mistress to queen. And unlike her husband, nothing had ever been handed to her on a silver platter. She had done it through hard work and other things.
You know what? It really gives a whole new meaning to coming up by your bootstraps.
Wow.
I'm on fire this morning.
Anyway, Fredegund summoned 2 young slave boys and gave them a suicidal task. Assassinate King Sigebert. She instructed them to use the small hunting knives carried by pretty much all boys and men at the time. Everybody had a little knife on them. It's small, ubiquitous, generally insignificant. But then she handed them a bottle of poison. Likely wolfsbane, maybe snake venom. And she instructed them to coat the blade with the poison just before they attacked. According again to Gregory of Tours, Fredegund did have access to medical texts and was capable of compounding dangerous herbs and or extracting snake venom. I have no idea how Greg is supposed to have known this, but we're going to trust
He just
Greg
sounds
here.
like a chatty bitty.
Well, no matter how she procured the poison, it worked. The 2 boys snuck into the Austrasia camp, pretending to be Neustrian defectors. They positioned themselves near the king with doe-like expressions of innocence on their faces, and when he stopped to speak with them, they struck. The wounds wouldn't have been lethal, except for the poison. Sigebert cried out and fell to the ground as his guards immediately killed the 2 sacrificial slaves. Like, there was no getting away with this.
Yeah.
But at that point, Sigebert was already dead.
Deed's done, man.
Now, despite the fact that she'd only killed 1 man, Fredegund completely reversed her fortunes. Sigebert's army, with his murder, fled. And Chilperic and his conniving bride easily retook control of Paris and actually extended their control into Sigebert's borderlands. They cut off the head of the monster, and that was kind of like, okay, we're done.
But 2 grow back.
The happy couple begins to settle into their increased lands, but trouble was brewing. When you cut off 1 head, 2 grow back.
Oh my god, I know what's about to happen, don't I?
I don't know.
That son's coming
yes,
back.
Yes, he is! Maravech. Maravech, the son of Chilperic and his first discarded nun wife. Maravech is pretty concerned because it's clear that Fredegund has her hooks in Dad. His new stepmommy is clearly ruthless, and he's pretty sure that she'll want her sons to inherit. She ended up having 6 children with him.
Holy cow.
Not poor Maravech from the discarded first wife. So he needs to find another kingdom to rule. Oh, hey, look! There's his widowed aunt over there, obviously in want of a husband and protector. He could do that. He pretends to visit his mother in the nunnery, but in reality he covertly meets and marries Auntie Brunhild in Rouen.
Now that's good, because it doesn't even defy canon law, because they're aunt-in-law.
It's iffy. It's iffy.
Is it iffy?
It is
I don't
iffy.
know.
It's not as bad.
No blood shared.
Well, the marriage is performed by the Bishop of Rouen, so it's pretty valid.
A bishop's blessing is
It's
pretty
pretty
good.
good.
Like,
It was
you
not a
only really
random
get Pope
priest,
and Cardinal above that.
So, how do you think that Chilperic, or more importantly, Fredegund, reacted to this wedding?
Oh, super well.
Obviously.
I think there was
Did they send
definitely
gifts?
a gift sent.
Well,
yeah.
Chilperic insists that the marriage be annulled immediately, and then sends his plotting son to a monastery. You're also joining the church. And poor Maravech literally seeing no other way out, makes a last-ditch effort to launch a coup. It fails, and then he has his servant kill him rather than face his father. So that's that. One head down.
Jeez, like, come on, dude. Put a little bit more of a fight into it.
No, Marevech was a limp biscuit. What could possibly happen next? Brunhild is pretty PO'd.
Naturally.
First, her brother-in-law kills her sister. Then he marries his tart. Then the tart murders her husband, and then they both take away her new husband. Now she's alone with 3 small children and a bunch of nobles who aren't sure that she should be the regent, and perhaps, they suggest, she should retire to a nunnery, and they can take things from here.
Absolutely not. No.
Absolutely not. Brunhild was strong, from noble stock, and she wouldn't give in. Instead, she has Chilperic assassinated while on his way home from a hunting trip.
Very good. Good job,
Whoops.
Brunhild.
I mean, who could have seen that coming?
Not a soul.
Eye for an eye. Now, the bases are loaded. Both kingdoms are ruled by these sisters-in-law, outsiders who literally married into the Merovingian family. As that same National Geographic article said, quote, a queen had to dodge assassins and employ some of her own, while combating the open misogyny of her advisors and nobles, the early medieval equivalent of doing it all backwards and in heels.
Love it.
Yeah. There was another Frankish brother, Guntram.
Lord.
King Guntram ruled Burgundy, another one of the 4 quadrants. It was a very prosperous kingdom that was uncomfortably placed between the feuding queens.
Well, it sounds like he needs to marry one of them.
Oh! I like where your head's at, but no. History has portrayed these 2 women as aggressive rivals with blind hatred toward one another. We don't have any contemporary sources that discuss their feelings or claim any personal grievances. Instead, all we have are accounts from centuries later that paint this picture. But, that said, wouldn't you hold a grudge?
Yes.
Fredegund has this holier-than-thou attitude. How dare you kill my husband after she did the exact same thing? If I was Brunhild, I would have anger.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. You were a kitchen maid who Gauswintha was nice to, and then
I would take revenge.
Literally steal her man and kill her?
Yep. King Guntram is a widower with no surviving sons, and he finds himself being wooed by both of these queens, each of whom hope that their son will inherit his lucrative kingdom, because someone has to, right? For his part, Guntram was not cool with women ruling at all. The Merovingian family and their Frankish dynasty in general did not agree with a female regent, and they had a ton of laws barring women from ever inheriting a throne. Guntram was old school and could not believe that these 2 upstart women hadn't shoved off to convents and let their betters, aka men, take control. But when death came, as it always does, Guntram's will was clear. Childebert II, son of King Sigibert and Brunhild.
I was thinking with the chill, it was going to be Chilperic's son, but ha ha ha.
I did too. I tricked you. Well, no, I didn't, but they did. Anyway,
yes.
Childebert II, Brunhild's son, is going to inherit everything. All of Burgundy.
He does have the better pedigree.
He had a noble-born mother, so it's not surprising. But despite Childebert's name being listed, Brunhild was really waiting to take control of Burgundy. She left her son and daughter-in-law back in Austrasia to take care of things, keep things running, and then she relocated to this new kingdom. And now here I really want to give her some credit. She did a lot of things well. First, she assured the Burgundians that they would not become Austrasian. The 2 kingdoms will be kept separate. Second, she let almost all of the influential nobles keep their positions. She didn't piss anybody off. Third, she created new positions with real power and filled them with her own loyalists. Fourth, she overhauled the taxation system and worked to grant relief to the poor and the infirm. Fifth, she worked hard to earn the Burgundian bishops' trust and respect. She needed the church on her side. And sixth, she rebuilt much of the capital city, including this gorgeous new church, all in an effort to restore the Burgundians' former glory.
All right, this is sounding good for her.
6 ticks in a row. Well done, Brunhild. Now, if only we could have some peace.
You've just damned us.
I have.
Just damned us, Caroline.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's already been written in history, so it's not like I did it.
Yeah.
But Brunhild, despite having not one but 2 kingdoms, just really couldn't let things lie. She was pissed. And she wanted Soissons, the former capital of Neustrasia and the wealthiest city in Fridegund's kingdom.
Ooh.
Was it revenge? Did she hope to right perceived wrongs? Or was she just power hungry? History certainly paints her as an ambitious witch who wanted more. But as we'll discuss a bit later, records were purposefully altered after her death, so it's hard to say. Whatever the reason, she planned an offensive campaign led by the Duke of Champagne and other nobles from both Austrasia and Burgundy. So separate, but not separate. However, she made a fatal error.
No.
On their way to Soissons, her armies burned everything to the ground, leaving mass destruction and a pretty obvious trail of breadcrumbs.
Yes.
It really didn't take a genius to figure out her intended destination, which gave Fridegund the time to hatch a plan. Her forces were severely outnumbered, but to counteract that, Fridegund used, frankly, just logic and common sense. First, she rode with her men, leading the campaign herself, so that's just flippin' cool. Second, she paid her men before the attack, hoping to buy their loyalty and steal their nerves when they realized just how outnumbered they were. Third, she decided on a surprise attack. Foregoing any of the chivalric niceties of the time, she decided to attack Brunhild's forces in their own encampment at night without warning.
She is neither noble nor a man. She is not beholden to these chivalric tendencies.
See, I just love how your mind works, that's where you went with that.
Why? Was that not what you
No,
thought?
it's the perfect... That's probably what she's thinking. And then all the men are like, how dare you take away the time-old tradition. My thought was just, don't let people die unnecessarily. That's my thought.
Efficient.
Here's her plan. She gave her frontline soldiers trees to hold as they walked, disguising themselves as a forest.
How Shakespearean.
Where do you think Shakespeare got it?
I mean, from her, obviously.
From her. She then put bells on the horses, which at first seemed kind of odd because it would make noise. But turns out it was customary at the time to put bells on horses when you let them go out to graze in pastures. So she hoped that the enemy would think, who, as an attacking force, would put bells on their horses? No one. So obviously it's just our horses grazing. And it worked. The earliest surviving record of the battle claims one sentry noticed the trees, asking his partner, hey, weren't those fields over there yesterday? Why do I see woods? But in reply, his partner laughed and said, yeah, you're just drunk. And therefore, no alarm was raised.
I mean, like, realistically, if somebody said that to me, like, okay, yeah, you were hammered.
Yep.
You were super hammered.
It was a slaughter. Brunhild's entire army was massacred. And Fridegund wasn't done yet. She took her forces on the offensive, destroying the city of Champagne, whose duke had led the Burgundian forces, punishing Brunhild for her aggression and teaching her a very costly lesson. Fridegund returned to Paris like a true Frankish warrior with much booty and many spoils.
Really was not rooting for Fridegund.
I wasn't either, although I don't really know why I wasn't, because she's the only one who used common sense. The whole time she's like, you just take care of things.
No, but...
I know. That is the story of Fridegund. She died in 597, seemingly from natural causes, but Brunhild lived on. 16 years later, she met Clothar II, Fridegund's son, on the battlefield. But her luck had run out. He defeated her forces and executed her. It was a death as epic as her life. He ordered that she be pulled apart by 4 horses.
Oh my god.
But in actual fact, her arms and hair were tied to an untamed horse whose very first action was a swift backward kick that decapitated her. So her headless body was dragged through the amassed army and slowly torn limb from limb.
Thank God for small mercies and decapitation via horse hoof. I guess.
And that, dear listeners, is the story of Brunhild and Fridegund, 2 Frankish queens, sisters-in-law, and rivals to the death. So what happened after they were gone? How could 2 such powerful and interesting women be lost to history? And the answer is men. It's King Clothar II, Fridegund's son, the man who executed Brunhild. Upon his aunt's death, he purposefully erased both her legacy and his own mother's. Like his uncle, King Guntram, Clothar did not approve of feminine power, likely because his mommy had never really let him leave the cradle. And he instructed his historians to rewrite history, erasing the powerful women who had shaped his kingdom.
I wish I could say I'm surprised.
Yeah. What a pompous prick. Your mother
fought tooth and nail for you, and you erase her? Like, I hope she haunted him for a
selfish
long
little bastard. The Carolingian dynasty took over the Frankish kingdoms in the 8th century. And to prevent their own women from having lofty dreams of regency and power, they then tasked their historians to put an even greater spin on history. They intentionally altered the records to show that women in power only leads to chaos, war, and death. Fredegund became a femme fatale, a somewhat obvious trope for a mistress, I must say, while Brunhild was painted a murderess with no maternal instincts whatsoever. And in effect, they made them both monsters.
Because you can't be both.
No, you can't. You can't be a powerful woman and a good woman at the same time.
Or a good mom.
Or a good mom, definitely.
Heaven forbid.
But though diminished, they never fully disappeared. As you hinted at, Shakespeare's Macbeth, more than 1,000 years later, refers to the walking forest strategy of warfare. A poem in 1405 by Christine de Pizan resurrected Fredegund's story of military leadership. Quote, "The valiant queen kept out in front, exhorting the others on to battle with promises of cajoling words. She ruled over the kingdom of France most wisely." In the 19th century, Romanticism swept through Europe, idealizing the court of King Arthur and his nobles, and the Merovingians became cool again and in vogue. Woo! Wealthy elites were dressing up as them for costume parties. And so, an epic poem was resurrected, the Song of the Nibelungs, which was written around 1200, and it was turned into this German national treasure, and thus inspired the composer, Richard Wagner, to write his 15-hour opera/opus, Der Ring des Nibelungen. And though he gave it a Nordic twist, it cleverly intertwines the bombastic histories of these two women at war, Brunhild and Fredegund.
So, before we are done and dusted, we are going to be asking this question every single episode. What were they fighting for?
What were they fighting for? Erica, what do you think? What were they fighting for?
What I think is really neat about this story is you see the trope often of women fighting in Euryalxorus, so in the stead of another. Yeah. Usually their husband or their son, and these women were not. They were fighting for their sojourn rights, but what pushed them? Was it revenge?
Was it personal?
I think it had to be deeply personal. Of course, there's always going to be this idea of defining legacy and ensuring that you amass this power either for protection or whatever. But in this case, it's dirty, it's personal, it is a family affair if I ever heard one.
I think it was personal for Brunhild, and I think that's why she couldn't let it go, even when she had won by the will of the third brother giving her Burgundy. I think she was just so angry. But I think Fredegund was just fighting for her life. I think Fredegund was enslaved from a young age. She never had anything given to her, and I honestly can see that some sort of terrible traumatic thing made her into a psychopath, and all she literally cared about was herself. I will do what it takes. Kill the king? No problem. Of course. I mean, sleep with this guy? No problem.
You even said they were not allowed to speak of her youth on pain of death.
Something clearly happened, but I think that she was fighting just to survive.
Yeah.
That was her entire life. It doesn't matter if she's a slave, a kitchen servant, a maid, or a queen, she's just fighting to stay alive.
If you shake up a rattlesnake in the box, it's coming out to strike at whatever it gets. It's not worried about strategy. It's worried about making sure someone else pays, number one, and that they stay alive. It's an animal instinct.
Maybe Fredegund truly loved Chilperic, and when he was murdered, she just flipped out and lost it. But maybe she was like, great, I got some kids out of him. I've got a queenship. Now I'll just be in control of my own destiny. I don't need a guy. And so I think it was less revenge for her. I think it was much more personal on Brunhild's and more
survival.
survivalist.
Yeah. I can agree with that, because nothing that she did, aside from Galswintha, which technically we don't have any proof that she was involved in, it seems like everything else was reactionary.
Yeah. What do I need to do to survive? Done.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know if you agree. So we're going to have a little poll on our Instagram and Facebook, and you can vote. Do you think that Fredegund was a survivalist, or was she passionately in love and we've misinterpreted her motivations?
Her story.
And with that, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica.
And we are Pithily Yours.
This episode is brought to you by the Pithy Chronicle, LLC. The Pithy Chronicle is intended for education, entertainment, and non-commercial purposes. Any views or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the owner may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity. While we offer lots of sarcasm, this podcast does not offer any advice or services. Listening to this podcast may induce fits of laughter, unexpected distraction, or uncontrollable rage at the subjects, hopefully not at us. We hope you learned something today. If not, so sorry. Please be advised we are not experts in the following fields: medical, legal, financial, technological, thermonuclear engineering, submarine warfare, neuroscience, or cat husbandry. Thanks for listening to our little disclaimer. Just covering our history-loving asses. Bye!